Hey, so today what we're going to do is kind of talk about shaping a lesson. We have a ton of different content that we've built for sports science, for athletic performance, some information that we can deliver to our coaches, deliver to our athletes. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time focusing on how we can actually shape that lesson that we're going to give to our student athletes, our coaches, and our stakeholders around the athletic community. A couple things that we can kind of think about throughout our lesson is we really want our message to kind of come to life. Okay, so when we build it around this kind of model, it's really going to help us do that. Okay, so today what we're going to kind of talk about is shaping a lesson, building and talking about a story, changing tempo and volume as we go, and then finally working to remove bias. We want to provide our athletes with information that is backed by science, but very applicable to what they're going to do. Okay, so let's talk about shaping our lesson. Okay, so we have our content that's been delivered by one of our coaches that's done some research. Our PhD students on campus, they've done the research. They've brought the information over, and these are the facts. This is how we're going to work on sleep. This is going to work on improving different practices. We've got that content. So now how do we work to deliver it? If we're a performance coach and we're out on the floor in the weight room following a training session, maybe I'm on the field post-practice, and I'm going to have my athletes, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that they can hear me. Is the music on? And is there another team training? Do I need to go outside? Where do I need to do this lesson? I need to be able to shape this lesson so they all learn and understand that there's a lot of different types of learners within that group. The bigger the group, the more different types of learners. Okay, so now I have my content. I have the environment that I'm going to be talking in and working with our athletes. The first thing I want to do is provide a quick hook or an intro to what we're talking about. Hey, today we're going to be talking about sleep. Along with that, we're going to review what we talked about last week. Hey, today we're going to talk about sleep lesson 2. If you remember last week, we talked about general tenets of sleep. There's light sleep, there's deep sleep, and then there's REM sleep. Okay, those different cycles. That's going to bleed into what we're doing now. The next thing we're going to do is go into our lesson body. We can really relate that to the content that's embedded in the lessons that we've already talked about. Okay? And also from the content that's in our lessons and our PowerPoints that we talked about as a staff. These are hard facts. If I want to provide some backing, scientific proof for certain things, if I want to show an infographic, anything like that, if I want to show a small clip, a video, a demonstration, that's where this goes. Is in the lesson body. That's your meat and potatoes of your current lesson. It should scaffold or build on what we talked about last time. If we go like that, it really helps our athletes and our learners be able to build different types of knowledge on top of one another if it all connects. Okay, so far what we've done is we've introed the lesson, we've referred it back to what we talked about last time, and then we're moving into our new lesson. This lesson right here should be in our setting, in a sport performance setting, if we're in a weight room or in a team setting following practice, about 2 to 5, maybe 6 minutes. After that, we're running out of time with our athletes. They've got other demands. Maybe they're going to practice. Maybe they're going to class. We need to have that packaged very, very well so we can deliver it really quickly. If we're in a team meeting or in a classroom style, we can really slow down, and we may have 35 minutes and we could really delve into some things, but the same rules apply here. Okay, but this is the meat and potatoes of what we're doing. The next thing, we want to find a way to review what I talked about. It may be simply restating big points that we talked about. It may be checking for understanding. That's what CFU stands for, checking for understanding by polling my crew. Now what I don't want to do is simply say, hey, what do you think about this? Because you're going to pretty much have crickets. We want to have directed questions. So how many hours of sleep should I have tonight? What is the recommended dosage of this supplement before bedtime? Whatever it needs to be specific to my lesson that I delivered. Okay? So that's going to come in that review session and check for understanding. You can, if you go in kind of a cycle within your lessons, you can, in this check for understanding, not just review what you talked about now, but if you did a good job over time, you can talk about what you did in the previous lessons. So for example, if I'm building a lesson at the beginning of semester and I'm talking about 5 expectations, then I'm talking about 5 standards, then I'm talking about facility use, Then I'm talking about general practices within strength and conditioning in our athletic pyramid. Once I finish my pyramid, I could check for understanding randomly and go back to 5 expectations, 5 standards, or general things about the facility. So if we build it like this, we can always go back and review later on. Then finally, when it's all said and done, we're going to work to preview the next lesson. Okay, so that's what we'll call shaping our lesson. When we get to, okay, well, let's check this off here. When we get to the lesson body, we want to work to try to paint a picture. We want to tell a story to whoever we're talking to. You know, we've got our athletes there, we've got administration there, maybe coaches are in the room. We want to paint a story so that whatever we're talking about, the athletes can see it. Okay, some things that you want to think about. Imagine that you're a person on the radio and you're describing something to an audience. You want to speak very colorfully. Okay, instead of saying that this is busy, or instead of me saying somebody's busy, I'm going to detail exactly what they're doing. Oh, this person does this, you know, then at 6 o'clock they go over here, and then they have to run to this meeting. Instead of just saying it's dark or it's light, maybe I speak in vivid colors. You know, it's a really dark green color, warm shades of gold. You know, really paint a picture so your audience really feels the words, feels everything that you're kind of talking about. Okay, so paint a story within that lesson body. Okay. The next one would be to change your volume and your tempo at which you speak. Okay, so if I'm providing a lesson and I stay at the same pace, the same tempo, and the same volume at the entire time. Now remember, our athletes are coming from a training session where we're often up here. If I am very monotone, okay, they may not be listening, and they may kind of blur us out. But if we can change the tempo at which we're talking, and then we maybe slow it down, you're going to captivate whoever you're talking to. The next thing is change volume. If you're about to make a point, there's no problem with raising your voice to make that point. Okay, you can change tempo and volume, but over time, that lesson is going to be shaped a lot more colorfully, and it'll have more flavor to it, basically. Okay, so we want to work on changing tempo and changing volume of the way we're speaking in that lesson. Okay, now here's the tough one. We want to work to try to remove bias. Now, a lot of that can come into play when you're telling a story, especially if you base it on personal experiences. Okay, so from my personal experiences, bias may come out. So we want to really rely in our lesson body here on the key points that we're producing in our PowerPoints, in our lessons that we're supplying to all our coaches to be able to teach our athletes. So as we're working on teaching our athletes, some things that we need to think about is shaping our lesson. Okay, you got the content. We've done that already as a staff in our staff meetings. We've got that content. So now how are we going to deliver it? Okay, we shape it. We have an intro with a review from last time. We have a lesson body. That's the meat and potatoes. You can take a little bit of time here. Shape it with a story, experiences of a person. It doesn't even have to be real. It just needs to be very vivid. Okay? After that, we want to review what we just talked about and have some form of check for understanding. It could be questions. It could be a little activity. It could be a demonstration where someone else is involved, where we get our athletes up and involved. And then finally, we want to preview what we've done in the past. Okay? When we're trying to work to remove bias, we want to try to stay within the lesson bounds. Okay? And I don't want to use words like from my experience or from this, something that may kind of swing it one way or the other. So we will continue kind of doing some of these videos in regard to how we're going to deliver lessons. The content is one thing, but we need to always be thinking about what's our instructional strategies on how we're going to actually get that message out. Thanks a lot.